Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the MCG on the last Saturday in September. In a few hours' time, this Coliseum, it'll be filled with 100,000 screaming fans. So here we are, after 198 home and away games, 8 finals, 16 teams will jealously watch on this afternoon as the Hawks and the Swans do battle in the most important 2 hours of Australian rules football. This morning, we've got some big guests. We'll look back, we'll look forward. We've got every angle covered of the grand final, and you'll watch it exclusively live on 7.
Two guys not playing because of injuries. Both had hamstrings, of course. Brent Guerra and Ben McGlynn are joining us. They're down on the ground. First of all, you to Benny. Shane Mumford, what's going on? We believe just a slight twinge on Thursday night. Is that right or not?
This is the first I've heard of it. He trained on Thursday and he's been up and about this morning, so it's the first I've heard of it. So.
Hey, boys, congratulations to both of you. I thought the way that you've handled yourself in difficult circumstances has been sensational, and even getting the news out the way earlier in the week that you couldn't play, was that a thing you did on purpose to try and avoid any distraction?
Can't hear anything down here, guys. It keeps cutting out.
Just saying, Gooey, did you try and get the decision out the way early so to avoid the distraction of grand final? You made the decision earlier in the week. Was that the decision early?
Yeah, it was. I tried running Monday at 100%, but I wasn't able to do that. And I thought by getting it out of the way early, it could let the boys concentrate on a week ahead and plan for the grand final without having to worry about if I'm playing or not.
So, Goo, did you actually try and run 100% on Monday? It didn't feel right, so you pulled out. Just tell us about the process of maybe the last week leading up to that test.
Boys, you're cutting out there. I can't hear anything.
Get back down to Ben McGlynn. Ben, how close were you? If you had one more week, would you be playing?
Yeah, probably. I was pretty confident early in the week that I would have got up, but on Tuesday we put myself through a test, so I had to sprint 100%. I got a few out, and then we're in the last set of my 5, and I just felt a bit of tiredness, and so obviously the dream finished then. But as Brent just said before, it's good I got out of the way early. The boys now are focused, on Thursday, and during the week they were focused on today's game and take out the risk of myself playing or the stress. So unfortunate, but I gave it 100% for the time that I was out to try and get back, and just fell short.
Commiserations to both of you. Thank you very much for giving up some of your valuable time, guys. Appreciate that. Going and enjoying the warm-up with the boys there. Brent Guerra and Benny McGlynn down there. Tim Rogers banging out a tune. Just a little bit hard for them to hear down there at the moment.
Pre-game entertainment in full mode, and as I said, I think they've handled themselves as well as you can. You can imagine how difficult that is for both those boys. And Ben McGlynn missed out on the 2008 premiership at Hawthorn as well.
And both pretty experienced players. I'd imagine they'd have a role to play in today's game. They'd be talking to some of those younger guys who haven't been around and played much footy, much finals footy. They'll still contribute to today's game and hopefully to their team's win.
Lee Matthews, of course, caught up with Alistair Clarkson, the coach of Hawthorn.
Where did your mind first go to when you thought, well, what are the couple of things we've got to do to minimise the Swans?
It's going to be a crackerjack battle through that midfield, and we'd like to think that Mitchell and Hodge and Sewell and Rioli and those type of guys going through there will pose some threats and concerns to the Sydney side, but ultimately the team that can have a greater than 50-50 result in there and get it on their terms, say 60-40, that's probably going to win the game.
Lance Franklin, sort of sense he's better as your deep forward target or as your runner?
Our forward line still functioned reasonably well when Buddy was injured for those 6 weeks, but we also know how much of a presence he can have in the front half, because he quite often draws 2 opponents to him, and that frees up a Bruce or a Piopolo or a Gunston if he's deep in our forward line. So probably the greatest challenge for us as a coaching staff is to find that balance between playing a little bit higher up the ground, but also complement that with some good deeper play as well.
Luke Hodge, bit short, a bit crook last week. Are you going to have to use him sparingly, or do you think, no, he's perfect?
No, he's recovered really well out of that illness that he had, and by Monday he's good as gold. He's pushed a lot of food back into his body and got his energy levels up again, and we'd expect that he's good as gold tomorrow.
One of the great fears is always conversion. Last week you had a bad conversion day, kept the opposition close. What will be going through your mind, you reckon, those first couple of shots, them 30 or 40 metres out.
Yeah, well, it's funny, isn't it? Because both Hawthorn and Sydney both had very similar scorelines last week, and by and large that hasn't been too much of a concern for us throughout the course of the year, and hopefully we got all our bad kicking out of the road last week.
Well, thanks for your time, mate. Good luck for the next 24 hours. And hope it's another one for the Hawks.
I'm here with John Kennedy Jr., who is a very nervous man, John. We're just looking at those clouds. We might get wet here in a minute as well.
Yeah, well, that'll throw a spanner in the works for both sides, I would have thought. But, let's hope it's a great game.
How'd you sleep last night?
A bit nervous, Tim. I've played in a lot of grand finals and won a few. And I've got to say, this is a tougher gig than actually playing. At least with playing, you can do something when you get out on the ground. But here, we just got to sit here and watch. And it's a pretty nerve-wracking experience, to be honest with you. But I hope they have a good game, particularly Josh.
Speak to Josh this morning?
Last night, I leave him alone this morning, but he was pretty good, and he was obviously excited, and I just hope he does well. Hope he does well as his father, and I'd like us to be able to experience what I did as a player, and unfortunately, it might have to be against the Hawks. But if it's not, well, then I get second prize. It's not too bad either. The Hawks winning as well. So either way, this shouldn't be a bad day for me. Hopefully,
that's a great consolation. I know we spoke to your dad during the week, and he hasn't shifted his allegiance yet.
No. I think it might be like the Saddam Hussein statue. If he does that, they might pull it down out at Hawthorn, mate. So I can understand where he's coming from. But I think down deep he might have if Josh wins it, I'm sure he'll be happy to see him be successful.
And good positioning on your behalf too. I know you're on the end of the aisle here because you like to move around a bit when you're watching him play.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stay very calm today, Tim. There's going to be no semantics. I'll just sit there, watch the game, and at the end of the day, we'll celebrate either way.
I know you'll be smiling at the end of the day, but let's just hope for Josh's sake it's a big, broad smile at the end of the day.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tim.
Good luck. Cameron Ling's down there on the MCG. Cameron?
Thanks, Timmy. Well, here it comes. It was 20 minutes ago. It was perfect sunshine. The dark clouds have rolled in. And I tell you what, it is extremely windy out here. I couldn't tell you which direction that wind is going, by the way. It's just swirling all over the place. It will have an impact on today's game. Grand finals tend to be a little bit scrappy anyway early on with the fierce contest through the middle of the ground. But I reckon this one will be extra scrappy. The ball's going to be on the deck. It's going to be a bit wet, and it's certainly going to be very windy. It'll bring those really hard contested ball players into the game, which should make for a really brutal start to this match.
Thanks, Lingy. You can see the flags. I was just thinking of the last wet grand final. 2009 was pretty wet with St Kilda and Geelong. It rained when Michael and Lee, you coached against one another in 2002. It rained a lot that morning, but I don't think it rained during the match, did it?
Well, the good thing about the wind, though, is it just keeps blowing the rain over, so it's unlikely just to settle in and pour for a couple of hours. The strong wind just keeps blowing the weather across.
Well, we're going to get some. There's no question about that, aren't we?
And you know what, Bruce? Sometimes, I've come home and they said, "Did you got wet at quarter time?" I said, "It didn't rain." She said, "Yes, it did." So you don't really, Bruce. You are totally oblivious.
You're oblivious to all of that. Are you of the opinion that it would favour one team or the other if it became really scrappy conditions?
I think it'll favour Hawthorn. Because I think Hawthorn have got the quality. Quality doesn't really get affected too much by bad weather.
Lee?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to affect either side that much. I mean, I see that, like the Jetters and the Goods, the guys who can really get a bit of ball on the outside and really create with a bit of space, that's not as easy if it's wet. So no, I don't think it favours either side myself.
So this is one of the moments, is it, when the teams first come out for the on-field warm-up? So big crowd already in.
A very careful moment. I mean, we're about 50 minutes before the game, and one of the things I'm sure the senior players are saying to their teammates, hey, we're coming out for a run around, just a bit of a warm-up, have a look at the crowd, make sure we're not getting hyped up yet.
Oh, man, not only hyped up, Lee, don't break down.
Nah.
It's almost like going to be cotton wool running down that race for a warm-up like this.
Well, we'll keep our eye on Shane Mumford. As premiership coaches, have you already spoken to the team for the last time, or is there another address you give them after this warm-up?
I tend to talk to my players just before they get in the race, but very little instruction. It's more about just enjoying themselves and all the best. It's sort of just a well-wishing thing.
Yeah, all the planning stuff is usually the hour and a half before. The one thing you've tried to say often as they go out to play is something to relieve the tension a little bit. Either, you're proud of them for getting this far, the sun's going to shine tomorrow, win, lose or draw. So make sure they're not getting so uptight that they're just completely nervous wrecks.
So the Auskick youngsters there forming the guard of honour. The Hawks about to come onto the ground. And You've won, Mick, as a home coach, Collingwood. Lee, and you've won as an away coach with West Coast. Lee, Brisbane, you came here and took on Collingwood and Essendon. Is it a neutral ground on grand final day, do you think?
Well, I don't think it's neutral today because Sydney play better on a ground that's a bit narrower. I think if this game's to be, if I could call it now, I would say they're going to win it wide, Hawthorn, and the width will always trouble Sydney.
Lee, those four Indigenous players that we're looking at now, I mean, they are star.
Four excitement machines. The one thing I would say, there's more chance that Rioli and Franklin I mean, Goods has been good, Jed has been terrific this year, but I think Rioli and Franklin as a pair are more likely to be very good more often.
And they both bring very strong form. And as Jed has been able to turn his season back around in the last couple of matches, hasn't he?
Well, he needed to, I think, from that Collingwood game because he got cleaned up by Tuvey. And that was the worry, I suppose, a week ago. Could he hold him out? And not only held him out, he pushed him under the ball and got back on that open space.
And I wonder where Goods does play today because he's a hard matchup if he goes into the mid and then goes down back. I wonder if Burgoyne, look at this weather coming in, I wonder if a Burgoyne might even get him when he goes forward. You know?
Yeah, I was wondering about that Burgoyne, if he's around the middle of the ground, maybe Burgoyne and Gibson can just experience enough to be able to change control of Goods if he goes deep. Goods, Gibson takes him if he's up in the midfield, maybe Burgoyne tries to be aware of him.
And do you think Hawthorn will be up for the Pike third man up? I mean, they've used a double team ruck a lot in Sydney in the last few weeks, haven't they?
Well, they used it when they thought their ruck wasn't competent enough to categorically beat his man. In Jolly's case, come over the top from the half-forward line, but I don't think they need to today. That's an unnecessary strategy.
It's an unusual stat, Bruce. 17 rugby tests for Canada. Unusual for an AFL player.
It's something that I probably took 2 years to let go, and it really spurred me on. It really drove me to get better, and I was very bitter, and it was very hard to deal with in that time, but I just knew I couldn't hold on to those things anymore, and I needed to look to the future. And being a captain, as you probably know, you've got to be positive, you've got to be upbeat, and you've got to let things go like a 1-point grand final loss.
Well, you're an iconic member of the Sydney Swans. What does the footy club mean to you?
The footy club's my home, it's my family, it's what's given me a culture, having been brought up as a young Indigenous male. I don't speak my language, I don't know exactly where my tribe comes from. I'm a proud Utna man, but I don't know anyone that speaks our language, and so culture is a massive part of my life that was never there. And to come to a football club and be part of starting up a culture, it's made me the person I am. And I just love being around the football club, driving our behaviours, being a leader, an elder in this football club. It's something that I really love doing.